Evening, campers. I hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day so far. It's Andy here, and look who I've got with me, eh? Look who I've got with me. It's the notorious, the infamous, the ever-present Dave Stewart, founder of Market Buy, online offer platform that has been taking the nation by storm. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Always good. Always life under the dome. So just getting through like everyone else, waiting for restrictions to leave and get back into life.
Mate, how's Market Buy going? Yeah, I mean, you had a massive uptake in that first lockdown. How's it been in this second one?
Mate, we're tracking along really well. You know, we've got sales that run all over the country. We've got, obviously we had a bit of a dip in our Melbourne sales over the lockdown period, but we seem to have picked that up with New Zealand sales. So what we lost out of Melbourne, we picked up with the Kiwis because they're obviously out and about, able to sell real estate. But, depends on the day, but anywhere between 3 and 4, upwards of 10 sales a day. So, it depends a little bit on what day's happening. But, yeah, mate, look, it's a good life. I enjoy it after 20 years of being on the tools as a real estate agent. Mate, I just have a bit of fun and enjoy it. And, much like you, I spend a lot of my time on the phone to agents. But, Andy, we are not here to talk about Market Buy, my friend.
Yes. So, gang, Dave hit me up on the weekend and was pretty cool about everything that I was doing with this show. And he goes, but I want to come on the show and ask you some questions. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Look, Dave, just so that everybody knows, Dave and I have known each other for a wee while now, and I consider Dave a mate and definitely someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect with in the industry, as does a whole load of people. But you've got some questions that you can put me on the spot with, to see how what my world's doing, I guess.
Yeah, mate. And look, I thought it was time to put you in the hot seat for once. And I've watched over the last couple of years how you've spent time sort of investigating what other people are doing and talking to other people and having I think you and I have spoke a couple of times on camera about what I do and how it rolls out, and you started to roll into that same sort of script a little bit then when you said, how's Market Buy going? But I've watched this show, and particularly since the lockdown started. So I guess my first question for you is, this is a really entertaining half an hour, however long it runs. What was your original motivation for it? How did Ask Andy start?
It kind of started... on the first lockdown, I started this show called The Silver Lining. And the reason why I started that show was because I was recognizing trends and patterns in society that were matching and really aligning with my mental health challenges that I had a few years ago. So I felt I needed to do something to help at least one or two people, right? So that's why I reached out to a whole bunch of people, yourself included, and say, hey, do you want to come and do an interview series and just be human with me? And I guess it's off the back of that I realized and recognized, and from feedback and so on and so forth, that maybe there's a bit of value that I can offer with this sort of platform and in this sort of forum. It was tied in with I've been having that imposter syndrome, afraid of my own ego getting dented and all that sort of shit, which got ripped to bits when I had some family stuff go on a little bit earlier in the year, and everything, as it tends to do with significant events, everything got put into perspective. And I was like, you know what? For the sake of a few people hanging shit on me or kicking me out of groups or whatever the case may be, like, they mean nothing compared to the people that I actually hold with a degree of value and respect and whatnot. So that's where I start. And ironically, I had one of those memory things come up on my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed, one of them.
Yeah.
And I actually did an Ask Andy show for consumers when I was a real estate agent for a while. I actually have done this before for consumers in the southeastern suburbs, and it actually went all right for a little bit. So I didn't carry it on for too long. I didn't have the commitment that I've got with this, but yeah. So this is sort of the second iteration of Ask Andy, really, to be honest.
So how have you found it? Because I've banged on about this for a few years now. you know, I think real estate as an industry, we've always been really concerned about being seen as professional and, you know, fitting into a really tight little box. And I know you struggled with that. I know you had a period, particularly over the last 12 or 18 months, where, you know, you'd sort of put yourself out there and then someone would come along and belt you across the head for it, or you'd cop some negativity and you quickly pull back into your box. But this time you haven't. So I'm interested in why you haven't this time and why you seem so much more comfortable just going, you know what, this is who I am. Screw you if you don't like it. This is who I'm going to be. How's that transition and what got you to that point?
A lot of it was, I'd say a lot of it, all of it was to do with this, and none of it was to do with any of the criticism that I was getting. And so what I mean by that is, I think up until sort of back end of last year, I hadn't really taken full ownership of my own mental health and well-being, in the sense that instead of being somewhat embarrassed by it, I managed to sort of transfer it into a bit of a badge of honor and a real belief and an ownership that out of the back of my mental health challenges, I've evolved as a human being, essentially, and whatnot. And that combined with, like I said, you know, look, in May, I lost my old man, and dealt with my mum, who was also going through some cancer challenges and whatnot as well. And that's when I literally thought, like, bollocks to it, like, seriously. And the other thing was with that was the amount of self-talk, that how powerful self-talk can be. So when before my dad passed away, and everyone's doing the whole tilty head, how's it going? You're right. All that stuff, right? I kept just saying, look, I'll be honest, I'm just so grateful that I'm here, because I was in the UK. I'm just so grateful that I'm in the UK. I'm so grateful I got to sit down, getting to see my old man. And I'm really grateful for the dad that I had, because loads of people don't even know who their dad is, right? And I had a pretty fucking cool one, to be perfectly frank. So, and the fact that I kept saying grateful and gratitude and all that sort of jazz, like, it really sort of charged me up in a really good way. And it was almost like my grand final. Like, so, I mean, I found out about my mum and my dad having cancer in the same week in April. So, like, it's going to test you, right? And thankfully, it's come out the other end. And now, you know, I'm sort of really hitting my straps with everything that I'm doing, which has been really cool.
So how do you see that, and what does that, when you're talking to agents, how do you see that as far as it relates to agents and their, I guess, almost pathological need to, you know, fit into that box? So what's your advice to them going forward? Is it just screw it and do it, just be who you are?
Well, interestingly, when I was going through real depths of depression, and I was still rocking sales and listings and running a sales team, learning how to be a dad and all that, that sort of half degree of detachment where I literally did not care. I was like turning into like an automated sort of machine sort of thing. My performance actually went ballistic. Like everything I touched turned to listings. Essentially, I went on a crazy run, like a 6-week run where I listed like 21 properties or something like that, and without any PAs or nothing. Like, I just went bananas. And off the back of, when I came back out of that particular funk, I was like, hold on, there's something that I can really be who I am. And a few years earlier, I had what I call a matrix moment, where I was trying to conform to the rule book and it wasn't happening for me. So I threw it out. That was one of my first screw it moments. And transferred how I saw myself in the space, and transferred it to it. Look, I'm a guy who likes to help people, and I'm just using real estate as a vehicle. Yeah. And it's sort of the same shit. It's the same shit that I've applied to this, essentially. And you know, I think one of my big fears this time around was, you know, I didn't want to upset the apple cart with my auctions, because auctions were like my main source of business, and I didn't want to upset. And then, like you said, I did sort of start stepping out of the shadows a little bit. And then someone that was helping me to get a lot of auctions at the time sort of said to me, look, mate, maybe wind your neck in a little bit. And I did, stupidly. And this time, I think COVID's basically given me the green light. And that's what I've been saying to loads of other people. COVID's given me the green light to go, fuck it. Like, this is the great leveler. And now everyone's Now I'm on the same level as everyone. Let's see who can really do. Let's see who can really win. And I've sort of got a bit between the teeth.
Yeah, and I think once you get to that point, I don't think you ever go back. And I was saying to you off camera, you know, my wife said to me to pull my head in on a couple of social media posts that I'd put up because I'd had a bit of a crack about the political situation in Victoria. And I just said to her, no, like, I'm not doing it. You know, at the end of the day, I have my views and my views and my views, and people take me for who I am. But I've been that way for a while, and I don't really care that much whether people like it or not. But it brings me to the next question. So you've been known as an auctioneer, and now over the lockdown period, you've sort of taken on this Ask Andy show, and it's been, you know, fairly successful. A lot of people on, and you get a lot of interaction and a lot of commentary. But I know that you've got something planned on the horizon for when Victoria opens up and we all become a little bit freer. Tell me what your next big plan is, because I reckon it's really cool. But I'm going to ask you some tough questions, mate. I'm going to really put you on the spot. Tell us what's up. What's up when we open up?
So I'm launching my coaching business because I just feel my mission is going to be to create a breed of professional human beings, right? So this is not fluff. This is not going to be, you know, let's all dance around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. It's going to be, you're right. You've got to make sure that in the client's eyes, you prove that you're not a dickhead and you know what you're doing. You need to fulfill both EQ and IQ in order to genuinely inspire action. And so I've written this sort of brief sort of PDF intro thing called the six elements of a professional human, and they're going to be things that I'm going to expand on over the journey. But for me, the biggest one, I mean, a lot of my stuff's going to come from my hospitality game. Like when I was just wired, I was hardwired to think back from what the customer wants as an outcome and reverse engineering from there. That's how I've been wired from the start of my working life. So because I've been in and out, I've been in services since I was 15. So, and when I came to real estate, that was one thing that always bugged me, is the fact that it's always about how the agent can make more money. Whereas if there's so much more gold, if you actually think about the consumer and then reverse engineer everything you do back from there, because you'll find that, like I said, you'll inspire so much more action in such a shorter space of time. Your efficiency becomes so much more impressive and better for yourself. I mean, Flick knows when I was going ballistic with my listings and whatnot before I went full time with Soulbuy, I was telling listeners, look, I'll let you know now. I've probably got about 45 minutes for our meeting. Okay. So in there, I want to make sure we cover everything that you want to know. But any questions, you feel free to shout up whenever you want. But I want you guys to talk to me as much as I talk to you in this 45 minutes, because like for me, listings have to be a dialogue. Sales, like you can't sell the unsellable. You should never have to convince anybody to do anything. If you provide the right amount of logic, the right amount of emotion and energy and all that sort of stuff, it will become a case of, it'll change from a case of, what do you charge, to, okay, cool, how much do I need to pay?
Yeah.
And it's a genuine thing. And look, I did things like, I used to take lots of people at face value, but then I just didn't care, right? If they went with someone else and they just didn't want to tell me, that's their prerogative. They're just doing what they feel is the right thing for them to do. It's like, I hate can't stand the term buyers are liars. I really can't stand it. It does my shit. Because buyers aren't liars. They're just doing what they feel is right for them and their families. And that's got fuck all to do with you as an agent. 100%. To be perfectly frank. It's got fuck all to do with you. So you can't have a crack at them for ruining your day when all you're doing is your effing job. Your job is to show people houses. And I'm going to bring a massive dose of reality to the game. And I think a lot of people will become a lot more comfortable in their own skin as a result of it.
So coaching, it's an interesting topic. And, I've been guilty over the years of giving the odd coach here and there a fair serve when I've felt I've been full of shit. But But there's no shortage of coaches. It's not like you're going into an industry that's crying out for a new coach. You know, there are thousands of them, you know, covering all walks of different types of aspects of coaching. Why would you take this step into what is already a very congested market? And where do you see the deficiencies in the coaching aspects now? Because obviously you've got to be looking at the existing coaches and say, well, I can do it better because I can deliver something that they're not delivering. So from your aspect, and as you enter into, you know, a coaching realm, what are you going to do that they don't do?
I'm going to blend EQ and IQ. I think one of the big things that is a not a concern or an issue, because at the end of the day, like, they do what they do, and some of them do it really well. And Leanne Pilkington asked me this question. She goes, so with your coaching, are you going to be more IQ based or more EQ based, right? And she asked me it that way, which I thought was perfect for me, because like I said, I've got an appreciation for both sides of it. I understand and appreciate the textbook, but for me, scripts and dialogues, for all intents and purposes, and I'm going to put this out there, scripts and dialogues are being presented to professionals in the space in completely the wrong way, because no one really tends to talk about context. The only reason why scripts and dialogues work, or whenever they work, is because they've been used in the right context, in the right scenario, in the right situation, based on the right amount of emotional energy, and whether it's positive, negative, or whatever the case may be, right? So for me, I think scripts and dialogues have definitely still got a place in the game, but they need to be provided to people in the industry, especially young ones, in like new people in the industry. They need to be provided with a bit of an asterisk saying, as long as, also providing that the context of the situation is this. But ultimately, we can't just be going on the other way and going happy clappy, because otherwise you'll become an agent that gets a load of, oh, we really liked you we thought you were great. We had such a good time chatting to you. We just decided to go with the other agent this time. But I hope you don't mind. You know what I mean? That means that you haven't proven your worth as a credible professional in this game. And so I'm amalgamating the two, and I'm fortunate, right? Because I had two parents that were they were both coppers. So I got brought up from a very, very young age, playground days, to read the play, read what's happening. Don't just listen to what's being said, and then work accordingly, and then operate accordingly. So I'm fortunate to have got brought up like that, right? And the other thing is that I do believe that I have over a lot of people is the energy and the attitude that comes with it, because I've got zero ego, like zero. Like when I'm an auctioneer, I consider myself the least important person in the entire transaction, like the least important one, even though I'm the focal point and all that sort of jazz. I'm not. I'm so far down on the totem pole of importance. It's not even funny, and that's how my wiring allows me to be free in thinking, in action, and all that sort of jazz. So, and that's why I reckon I just feel that there's a different way, and I'm sick of the perception. I am. I'm over it. So,
in what way? What do you mean you're sick of the perception?
Both ways. So, from the consumer point of view, I'm sick of the reason why consumers have this perception of the real estate space is because we are being drilled to make money. We're not being drilled to look after our people, our consumers that pay us their hard-earned dollars in order for them to advance their lives. All right. The vast majority of training is around, making sure you make the most out of each individual, and it's all money sharking and what have you, right? Which is bullshit when you're in a human industry, when you're in a human focused industry. So there's that part to it. But internally, the one thing that really shits me is the pedestal that people get put upon, that so many young people, especially young people, they come into the game thinking that that's how they need to be in order to be successful. Yeah. And they don't understand that rare 0.5% of real estate professionals, real estate agents that have that act like that, there is a degree of substance to what they do. You can't just copy what they do having listed like 3 houses in 12 months, right? You can't do it. You have to have substance as well as style. So I'm going to be doing a lot of calling of bullshit on a lot of things. And
I reckon it was probably 2 years ago that we spoke about this. You know, this fascination with the $1 million agent, this fascination with the GCI of $1 million. Given that we all know that the vast majority of people that are writing $1 million in commission, number one, it's a tiny, tiny percentage of our overall industry. Like, it does not even closely represent the majority of the people that are out there in the coal face, busting their asses to get listings and sell. But beyond that, no one's earning $1 million, mate. Like, they're paying, 2 or 3 PAs, they're paying admin. Like, you look at it and you say, well, yes, but the split that they're getting out of it is certainly not the gross commission that is being generated. But that seems to have been the focus. And it's not one coach in particular. It seems to be pretty much across the board that everyone has had this fascination with this $1 million. And I can tell you, there's plenty of agents that I know, plenty of agents that I work with on Market Buy that write $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year and have a bloody good life. They have a really good life. So I think that's been a real issue within the coaching industry. And I think it's really, as you say, particularly for the young people coming in, it creates a false expectation. It creates this expectation that if you're not writing $1 million in gross commission, then you're not worth anything. You're not a valued member of the industry. I think that's a huge issue within coaching.
100%. It's a massive issue, and I'd love to survey all of their clients, all of their customers, as to how well they feel that they've been served against someone that like a few guys and gals that I know out in the burbs that get zero recognition by the greater industry, yet service their clients so much better, right?
Yep.
So much better, and they do it with a degree of purpose and a degree of dignity and a real knowledge of who they are as individuals, right?
Yeah.
It's why I had Peter Joyce on. It's why I had Peter Joyce on last week, who owns. He's a director of a firm out in Wangaratta, and he knows who he is, so like to the core, and to the point. But he just makes sure that he does the right thing by people at all times. And now he's absolutely killing his area. And that's the thing, right? Doing the right thing is always the right thing. And I know more $1 million plus GCR writers that I don't that are just out and out arseholes, right? Not nice people.
Yeah.
And they will do what they need to do in order to make their money.
Yeah.
Well, that will come with some decisions that will be beyond questionable. They will be just disrespectful and against the nature of what this game should be about.
Yeah, 100% agree. So what's coaching look like for you? Obviously, there's different models of coaching. There's events and there's seminars. There's monthly programs. There's in-office visits. What do you see? How does it unfold for you?
Well, I've not technically not launched yet, but I've got my first couple of monthly mentorship clients that have come on board already, which is really cool. And I'm going to cap how many of them I do. To be honest, I'm not going to be cattle market the whole thing. I'm going to be very strict on myself as to how many I end up doing, and actually probably stagger it out. So I'll say, look, when the first 20 is capped, I'll be able to look after you when one becomes available, sort of thing, or 30 or whatever I end up doing. So I'm going to limit that for sure. I'm still going to be the type of guy that's going to be more than happy to be doing this show and giving information away for free. I just will be. It's the nature of who I am. I've had a guy say to me that he got all the details of my mentoring program and whatnot, and said he's decided against it because he gets enough value from this show. So, so effectively,
out of a job.
So I've done myself out of a job to a degree, but I don't care because, for example, someone that I respect a tremendous amount, like, and a real sort of stalwart of the game in Victoria, sent me a text earlier on just saying that he feels what I'm doing for the industry is amazing and really appreciates it and all that sort of jazz. And if I'm doing the right thing and getting that sort of feedback, I know that my time will come.
Yep.
My time will come. And yeah, there's going to be some people that, because this is a very sort of diluted version of everything that I do, because obviously it's very generic information. Yeah. But for example, I've got one lad who, so I was focused, I really want to be focused on agents south of 400K. That's what I would love to be focused on. And accordingly, my pricing and whatnot reflects that to a degree. Okay. But my first client that's come on is just been named top 15 Ray White. Okay. So he's the first client that came on board, and he wants to be challenged. So the model that I am going to bring in, because my second client is in that sort of mold that I'm looking to really try and shape. For him, for the agent that's doing more, it's going to be more of just a challenging. I'm just going to be posing philosophical stuff at him and see if I can just alter his thinking to a degree, because he only needs altering like 10%, and he's just going to go bananas. He will become $1 million writer. He will. Yeah. By doing the right thing.
Yeah. No, look, you and I have spoken, and we've spoken at length just on the general philosophy of real estate over the last few years. We've had conversations about different aspects of real estate. Look, I'm excited to see what you do, Andy. I really am. I think coming at it from a very realistic position, and I've been pissy about this whole focus on the top 1% of the industry for a while. I don't think it serves the vast majority of agents that are out there. And I think the vast majority of agents are out there are just really genuine, good people that are just trying to earn an honest, decent dollar and trying to do the right thing by their clients. But there's nothing out there that really serves them, which is why I reached out to you and said, get me on, because I want to have a chat to you about it, because I reckon this is worth highlighting. I reckon this is worth letting people know that this is going to be available. Because and that's why I asked you the question about what you see as being different, because I don't see this anywhere within the real estate coaching sphere. I see a whole lot of hot air. I see dubious claims. I see some really good practitioners. I've got a lot of time for Jess Densley, who works very much in the core, inner workings of day-to-day real estate. So there are some really good coaches out there that I think in their niche marketplace work really well. But geez, mate, I see some bullshit. So pretty excited to see you bring this out and really take a very raw, very real approach to coaching. And I think there's a lot of people, particularly in that target market you're looking at, that will get a lot of value out of it.
Oh, look, man, I'm unbelievably practical and pragmatic about a hell of a lot of stuff. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. I see so much of the training that goes on. Like, I've been a part of it. I've got all the battle scars, right? I was doing between 50 to 90 transactions a year off my own back, right? And I'm like what we said off air, like I'm not been on the front line for God knows how, and I've got 2 listings, right? So I'm still in the game. I'm still, and nothing makes me more happy than being in the trenches, right? Being in the trenches with people and getting stuck into it. Now, can I do that on scale? Of course I can't. Of course I can't. And I'm conscious of that. And I'm going to be, all being well, bringing out some things that are more of a product-based service as opposed to, me interacting one. But ultimately, that's how my fire's lit, right? By inspiring action in human beings one at a time. That's what I love doing. But I am very, very conscious. I mean, for example, talking about things like being dominant on social media and all this sort of stuff, right? And things around that sort of jazz. Like, none of this is rocket science. And what does aggravate me is the fact that people that are being put in front and being put on the pedestal, being the model examples, why don't you just tell people how it's done instead of milking? Like, why don't you just tell them?
Yep.
For me, from a coaching point of view, I'm hoping, because I'm like with the mentoring example, I'm hoping that because I'll be doing 6 or 12-month contracts, and I'm hoping at the end of the contract they don't need me again.
Yeah. It's all about providing that value, isn't it? It's providing the value
I'm really hopeful that I do myself out of a job with every single client that comes on board.
Excellent. I like that. I do. I think that's good.
Yeah,
that's really,
because if I've done that, it means I've done my job.
Yeah.
And then if they want to get me on for another 6 months, I'll need to know why. And if it's anything repeated, it means I've failed.
Yeah.
And I will compromise. I will compromise my income off the back of it, because I won't feel right by just repeating the same shit.
Yeah.
I've been coaching teams and whatnot for a little while because of the auctioneering thing. And then they asked me to come in and help them out and stuff. And I've sacked a couple of teams because I'm like, I am wasting my time and your money.
Yeah.
I don't want your money anymore because you're clearly not doing anything with it.
That's right. Yeah. So with coaching, still doing the auctioneering though.
I'll never stop doing that.
No, I didn't think so.
I'll never stop doing that. I love it too much.
And still obviously doing a lot more and increasing amounts with the REIV.
Yeah, because I'm a firm believer in, if you're not prepared to do something about it, you can't whinge about it.
Absolutely.
You haven't got a place. Yeah, you don't have a right to say a damn thing if all you're going to do is sit in the cheap seats and bitch and moan about it. So I'm getting increasingly hands-on with the REIV. I think that this has absolutely shown that we do as an industry, as a body, need a spearhead. Like an institute, we have to have one, because otherwise we'd have no voice. If it wasn't for the REIV, they wouldn't have let us do those. When we had that sort of 48 hours where we couldn't do private inspections or something as well.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for the REIV, that had stayed in place.
Yeah.
I think I've got a growing belief in the people that are within the halls, particularly the staff. Emma Burton, Sophie. And a couple of the gang that are in there now. I've just got a firm belief that that is a good little team that's kicking on in there now. So, and I'm going to be more than happy to do what I can, because you need it. You need a body like that. You need a voice, and with a good, strong voice like that, you can actually invoke positive change for consumers.
Look, the REIV is really interesting. So I joined real estate in 1999. So I don't know, what are we up to now? 21 years, I think. And I was a member of the REIV for that whole time. I've been a member or an office member, or whatever the case may be, whether I was running offices. I got to be honest, Andy, for a good portion of that, I didn't see a whole lot of value from the REIV. It didn't really. I didn't feel that it was an organisation that was representative as me as an agent. But I must admit, over the last couple of years, the last 12 months particularly, I think you're right. I think the team that's come together within the REIV is a whole lot more effective. I think they are much more representative, and I think they've taken a real hard look at what they do, and I think they're much more representative of the industry. And particularly since COVID, their advocacy of the real estate industry since March, since COVID reared its ugly head for us all to deal with, has just been outstanding. Like, it really has. They have really shown themselves to be a very valuable member. And I don't pay lip service to people. You know that, mate. I'm happy to call people an arsehole if they're an arsehole. But that's why we've got more involved in the REIV over the last 6 months. That's why we're sponsoring their award. I think for the first time in a long time, I reckon it's an organisation that's well worth being a member of. I think it's an organisation that, as agents, you can clearly see and it can clearly be demonstrated that they have and are advocating for the best interests of the industry.
And they're making huge changes as well. So, like this year, I was pushing for it a little bit, over the course of last year and whatnot, and as were a couple of other people. And so this year, it's well overdue, right? But this year, they're doing training sessions and allowing webinar as well, because I just kept saying, look, Camberwell's the biggest pain in the arse to get to on the planet. Most landlocked, pain in the arse suburb ever. And like the epicenter of all traffic in the world. And so they started doing, like, having webinars as well as in person. And there was that letting go of fear that, no one's going to turn up. Well, no one gives a shit. It's all about engagement, right?
Yeah.
And they've really sort of taken that and started to really run with that, which is amazing. And the modernization of thinking within the space is really, really great. I'm really keen on, and I've said this to them, like when there was that constitutional to and fro around the turn of the year, I said, look, I'm going to back the changes. I'm going to make sure I hold you to it though as well, right? And the other thing to it was, like, if I'm going to get involved with it, I want to make sure that everything that is done is being done with the consumer front of mind.
Yeah.
That's the be all and end all for me. Always has been. Always has been. Ultimately, if you ain't got customers, you're not going to have any money anyway.
No.
So,
exactly.
and people talk about disruptors and disruption in the industry, like Purple Bricks, for example. Like, I get why why the industry really hated that model, because the fact that I can't stand people that shit on the industry that feeds them.
No,
that really does my head in. Their communication platform that they had in the back end, if anybody cared to have a look under the hood, it's actually really, really good. If they'd have focused on that, as opposed to just shitting on real estate agents, talking about commisery and all that sort of crap, I reckon they'd have actually survived, to be honest, because their model was their communication model was really good. And the reason why people call things disruptors, and the reason why disruptors get to have a go, is because the people aren't being served properly. If the people were satisfied, there wouldn't be room for new people to come in.
No, and it's a bit of a misnomer. You know, people like to look at stuff like Uber, they look at Airbnb, and they talk about disruptors and people that have come in. You know, what people fail to understand within the real estate industry, and something that I've been very, very mindful of from the outset, is we are a human industry. You know, we're not providing a car service. You know, we're not providing transport from point A to point B. And, you know, people say, well, you know, and we had that really early on with Market Buy, and people would say to us, well, you're going to replace the agents. And my answer to that since day one has been, until AI gets to the level where it can really accurately replicate human emotions, human experiences, and be almost indistinguishable from a human being, it's not going to happen, because our job is to take a buyer and a seller and navigate that emotional roller coaster that a sale is all the way through. So, look, I agree. I don't think there's any room or any real opportunity for massive disruption of the real estate industry. Massive believer in the adoption of tech, but I'm biased on that, mate. So, you know, clearly I'm going to say that.
Loads of people have the misconceived idea that your platform's there to eradicate auctions, right? But you and I have collaborated on this for almost a couple of years now, where I've got an auction firm and have your platform in the back end, because I believe that they can come together and work in perfect harmony. I really do. And like, adoption of tech is a necessity, because ultimately, if you want to actually provide the value that you as a human can, you need to stop doing all of the stuff that technology can do. So that's basically what that boils down to. And offering more transparency via these sorts of things is just imperative now, because it's like when agencies don't like telling anyone what sort of kit they use because they're worried about the competitors finding out and all that sort of. I'm sorry, man, but everybody knows what everybody's doing now. Like, everybody knows what everybody's doing now. So get over yourself and understand that the difference maker, the value, is in the podgy, squishy, fleshy thing that's using those bits of kit. All right? The bits of kit are going to be across the board, or variations of, right? It literally boils down to, have you got the chops to be better than the next person with that kit?
So real estate post-COVID. I've got my own views on real estate post-COVID, and I reckon it's going to be really exciting. Like, I think, you know, not so much volumes and numbers, but just the way it works. You know, I see meetings like this, you know, Zoom meetings, virtual appraisals that are the precursor to that final appraisal, where, you know, prospective vendors will interview agents on a platform similar to this before they get them out, before you have to go through the walkthrough. You know, initial buyer conversations where you can get on to a platform like Zoom, like Teams, like anything along those type of nature, and get a really good feel of where they're at. I think real estate's, people are a bit beaten down at the moment because we've gone through, particularly in Melbourne. But I certainly see over the next 6 months, I think real estate will just flourish, and I think the innovation and the appetite for change is going to be amazing. What do you see over the next little while?
I think the critical piece is going to be efficiency. Efficiency with your opportunities, because I think there are going to be plenty of them, and for me, the people that focus on maximizing the output of each opportunity as best as they can will end up doing extremely well. The concern that I have is that because we've got a lot of ground to make up from a financial point of view, my concern is that people and agents take on any business at any cost, because that will make them feel like they're getting back on track from a financial point of view, and then either not service them as well as what they should have done because they're not getting as much money off them, and therefore they're in their mind, they're like, well, they're not worth as much anymore to me, or they're going to take on way too much and end up dropping the ball from a service level that way. And so for me, critical about efficiency and ensuring that you've always still got long-term legacy, long-term reputation back in mind whenever you're making any decision, because it's going to be natural for a real estate agent to take on whatever. Fuck it, I'll take on one at like 1% or 1.3 or 1.5 or whatever the case. Like, it just means at least I've got some more money coming in. But unfortunately, what is going to happen is, because you've taken on that 1.3, there's going to be a 2.3 over here that you'll either miss out on because you're too busy, or you miss out on because of the fact that you've now decided that you're a 1.3 agent and you've just missed out on 1% over here. And so that's my only concern, is that agents drop their standards when realistically they need to be maintaining them within the office space, and not just from an individual point of view, but the office reputation. Leaders within teams are going to need to set standards quite strictly in order to make sure that when the dust settles. So I think that this flow on will happen. I think Easter will be the new Christmas with respect to holidays and breaks and all that sort of stuff. I think lots more people will work all the way through Christmas. I've spoke to a conveyancer today, and she's, for the first time in I think she's had her conveyancing firm for like 15 years. She's going to be open all the way through Christmas and New Year, which for me is clever, because there's going to be a lot more of a need for them. And because lots of people are grounded, right? So there's going to be more transactions going on that aren't just non-Christian. People aren't going to be as distracted by Christmas. So, and then when the dust settles in March, April time, or, whenever the case may be, I hope that agents can look back, think that they've maximized the potential out of it, but at the same time, they've not foregone their standards because as well as I do, like, as soon as an agent drops their comm by any amount, it's very, very difficult to then, from a mindset point of view, for them to bring it back up.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's my only concern, is the fact that there will be a wealth of opportunity, and that what could come out of desperation is a bit of a race to the bottom on commission.
Yeah, and look, I think we're going to see, and it's going to be really interesting to see, but I think we're going to see less numbers of agents. I think there will be, since March, there's going to be a certain number, particularly in Melbourne, particularly in metropolitan Melbourne, a certain number of agents that don't make it to the other side, that don't survive the drought of revenue that's happened over the past little while. So, and I think you're right. There'll be others that will just take on anything and will burn themselves out. Running themselves from pillar to post on business they probably shouldn't have taken on in the first place.
I think just to interrupt them, I think on the other side of it, though, I actually think and feel that consumers are going to be a hell of a lot more attuned to that as well. And I think those comm chasers and the ones that rely on a reduction of comm in order to get business, ultimately, I think a lot more vendors will sniff them out as well. I think because vendors, we've all been made to become a lot more human by everything that's gone on. We have. We're a lot more attuned to our dynamic in the home. We've become a lot more aware of things that are going on around us, and so on and so forth. I think the EQ piece of my equation is going to play a massive part for way more than ever. I think the EQ piece of my equation is definitely going to play a much greater part. But then, like I said, as long as those EQ winners, the ones that have got that EQ, they've just got to make damn sure they don't go too far down that EQ path, which is going to be their challenge, because everyone's going to be all emotional and, wanting to get out and blah, blah, blah. They've still got to make sure that their credibility is on track as well. You can't friend yourself, because that's when you will get done by a cheat comp, like straight away. So it's going to be, I think a lot more vendors will be a lot more aware of it. So it's down to the people with the better EQ to make sure that they have a spine of professionalism running through their presentations, running through their dialogues and whatnot, to make absolutely gilt-edged, bow-tied, job is theirs sort of thing.
Well, mate, I've run through all the questions I wanted to. I think from my point of view, having been around the industry for a long time, I think you're going to launch a coaching business into a maelstrom of activity when all the market opens up. But I think there's a real place for it. So, sincerely, mate, I wish you the best of luck with it. I think it will be a service within the real estate industry that has probably been crying out for it for a while. So, absolutely, I wish you the best of luck. And I think if, anyone who sees this or is watching it, I reckon they'd be mad not to give you a bell and have a chat to you about what sort of programs and services and discussions that might be had. And knowing you, mate, you'll have a chat to them for an hour and not charge them, but that's just the way you are.
Yeah, I know. And I really appreciate you coming on, man. I do. I really do, because I wouldn't do this if I didn't feel that I had value to bring. I know that. Man. I can go and be an agent and provide my family with a pretty cool life. I can. I'm confident I can. But ultimately, my DNA is to serve other people so that they can shine. I love my auctioneering. I hate the spotlight. I do this show. I hate the spotlight. I do it because I feel I'm helping other people do well. And if the industry turns around and just calls me a dickhead and tells me to get stuffed, which hopefully it won't, but if it does, then I'll just come back in a different form, be an agent, and just win that way anyway.
I don't think that'll happen. As I said to you, I've looked at the coaching industry a lot over the last 20 years, and it has always irked me that, that focus has always been on that top 1%. And I've always said that I don't believe that there's anyone out there that is willing to represent, is willing to talk the talk with the people that need the coaching, the people that want that communication, the people that, need to, just talk over strategies and just say, I've been posting crap to Facebook for 6 months and no one's paying any attention. What do I do there? I'm running around doing 14,000 things on a weekly basis. I'm doing final inspections and building inspections, and I don't have a PA, and my diary's full, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just running around in circles. This is the stuff that people don't talk about. This is the real life of a lot of agents out there where, you say, I'm going to do prospecting between 1 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and 3 o'clock. And I'm going to hit the phones. I'm going to use my database, and I'm going to ring everyone that I should ring. And then at 1:30, just as, they spend half an hour making a coffee, building themselves up to the prospecting calls. And then at 1:30, someone rings and says, hey, can I have a look at 23 Smith Street? And you go, yeah, bang, dump, out the door. Or someone rings and says, I can only make it at 2:30 for a valuer to go through. And you don't have a PA, so you just go out and do it. It's that type of stuff that never gets covered. No one talks about it.
It's not glamorous, mate.
No, it's not. But it's a life that most people have to deal with in real estate.
Yeah, and look, man, I guess it's the way I've been brought up, right? They can have their glitz and glamour. Let them have it. If I never grace the, if I never have this huge event that I think's the be all and end, like I was 1,500 or whatever, if I never have that, I do not give a shit. Like, I don't care. I really couldn't care less. I just, as long as I'm helping each person to just advance their lives that little bit further, I sleep well. If I sleep well, then all is right in the world, and I get to go and be a cool dad.
Well, mate, as I said, I reckon there's a real need for it. I think there just hasn't been anyone that has wanted to, deal with those day-to-day agents and as you say, deal with the stuff that's not glamorous, but it's necessary, And I know that when I was first starting out of real estate, if someone had just sat me down and said, this is how you need to address all the different stuff that's pulling at you every day. Yes, you have to sell properties, and yes, you have to get listings, and yes, you have to run your final inspections and your building inspections. But this is the way to be able to manage that process, and this is how you get yourself to a point where you do the prospecting calls that you need to do. I had to work that shit out myself, and I've said to people over the years, I won a whole heap of awards for sales and listing, but for the first 2 years in real estate, I almost got sacked 3 times because I was terrible at what I did, because no one stopped to tell me. No one stopped to show me what I needed to do, and I had to work it out myself. But for those first 2 years, I would have sacked me. If I was my own boss, I would have kicked my ass out of the door. And then when I got it right, and I had to learn it myself, but when I got it right, then my career took off. But, you can shortcut a lot of that stuff just by putting, an old head on young shoulders.
You can, and there's lots of systematized processes and whatnot, and ideal weeks, which I fucking they do not work, because the reality of it is, like you said in that example before, if a moneymaker comes in, you're going. All right, end of. The big thing for me is allowing people the understanding that they can be who they are. They can, they can control their diary a lot earlier in their career, as opposed to just running around chasing tail, right? Yeah. You can do that. I think one of the other big assets that I'm going to have in my tool bag is that I've got a marketing business. I've been in other games. I know how social media works. I understand it. I get it. I'm a massive geek around all that sort of stuff. I know how to make things happen so that you don't have to spend every single minute of every single day on your phone doing one thing or another. I've got the t-shirt when it comes to a lot of different elements of the game, as opposed to just working on scripts and dialogues or listening to this $1 million guy who does this one thing over and over again, which is just bollocks, right? And ultimately, and it's going to be horses for courses. There's no one blanket rule. So that's probably why I'm sort of edging away from that sort of webinar generic stuff and charging for it, because I don't feel I can. Because ultimately, it's horses for courses. Same as auctioneering. You can't. I just personally don't feel that I could do an auctioneering class, right, and give true value. Yeah. Because the way I auction is different to the way you auction, different to the way that I don't know, anybody else, different to the way a female auction. But that's cool, because it's a very personalized thing, very personal in the craft of auctioneering. And the same thing, same ethos can be applied to the real estate space as well. You can be you and have fun and make a load of money at the same time, or enough money for you to be happy.
What's the other thing? I think there's large parts of the industry that don't necessarily want the stresses or the issues of writing $1.3 or $1.4 million and running 3 PAs and all the associated stuff that comes with it. Most people, sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, but most people, if they earn $300,000, $350,000 in gross comm and they pull in 50% of that, 150 grand's not a terrible wage to be on. And if they can do that, still get to their kids' basketball games, still live a life, and still, for a lot of agents out there, that's perfectly fine. And I think we've put too much focus on being able to say to people, you're shit. Like, that's not good. If that's all you want to do, you're not trying hard enough. And I reckon that's a big part of the real estate industry that has always pissed me off. At the end of the day, if you're earning over 100 grand or 150 grand and you're working, you're not doing 100 hours a week, you're working, 50 hours a week. That's a good life, mate. You come and go as you please. That's a good life.
It is a good life. It all boils down to how you define success. Like for you, like what does success look like for you?
Yeah.
And depending on what that answer is, okay, well, as long as you understand that the sacrifices that are going to need to come with what success looks like for you. Now, does it actually feel like success now you've heard about what the sacrifices are?
Yeah.
And if they are,
some sacrifices you can never ever get back.
Exactly.
It took me 10 years of my kids' lives before I realised that I was going to work at 7 o'clock and coming home at 7 o'clock, and they were in bed when I left and in bed when I got home. And it took me a decade to work out that I was never getting that back again.
Yeah, and you look at, and I know this is a real disparaging, like sort of typecast comment, but a number of these people on the pedestal are either 2 marriages in, their personal lives have taken an absolute battering, as a result of their success. Well, success for me is the smile on the 3 people, the smiles on the 3 people that are in the house behind me, right? That's my success. And I'm just really grateful that I found the craft of auctioneering. Is something that I genuinely love, and I'm getting a very similar buzz with this coaching thing, which for me is a very human green light, a very, very big green light in my mind.
So you've done the soft launch. When's the big formal launch into the marketplace? Waiting till COVID's over, or
no?
Not waiting till restrictions, I should say. Stage 4 restrictions.
No. I mean, ideally, I'm going to have it out next week. I ideally want to have it out before stage 4 curtain hopefully gets raised, because and I'm working with a guy on a bit of an awareness strategy as well.
Yep.
So hopefully it's going to be next week, all being well. So I'll put a couple of little teaser videos out over the last sort of 6 or 7 days, just to sort of throw the signal up in the air. The early feedback has been really positive, which is great. So when it kicks on formally, and I really sort of go through the gears, all being well, I've got my goals, as everyone should have. I've got my goals. They're pretty modest. I've been told that they're probably a little bit low, but I honestly don't care, because they're going to be because they're just going to be it's a validation thing for me first. Validate my existence in the space, and then we can go have fun taking on the Mr. T Panos and the Mr. J Fegans of the world, and we'll have a crack at some stage.
Yeah, and look, just have some fun along the way, mate. Have some fun.
One of my core values. One of my core values, man. I'm never going to lose sight of that.
Excellent, mate. Well, all the best, and I'm always around. Anything you need, I'll help you out. I reckon it's fantastic. So, as I said to you before, I think it's got a lot of value, and I think it's well worth a lot of the people who, particularly over the next couple of weeks, while we're all gearing up for the curtain to raise, as you put it, that they should probably reach out and have a bit of a chat to you and see what's on offer and what your services are and how you can help them out.
Look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Guys, just so that you know, Dave hit me up about this wasn't a teed up thing. I promise.
I'll cover that, Eddie. And I'll tell you how this all came about. So I've got 3 teenagers. I don't always get a chance to watch the Ask Andy show. Sometimes, kids are running around and I've got to help them out. But I try and get on and watch it. And I've watched it, probably once or twice a week over each time he's done it. But I've always found it really engaging and entertaining. And what I've noticed over the past few weeks was a lot more people tuning in, a lot more people making comments, a lot more interaction. And then, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, you dropped that you were going to do the coaching thing. It was absolutely me. I sent Andy a message. I said, congratulations on the show. Really like it. I think it's got a lot of value. I think you're giving a lot of really good information out there in the marketplace. But I want to put you on the hot seat. I want to ask you about the coaching, because coaching's been something that I've been very interested in. Not me to do it. Like, I'd be the world's worst coach. I have no aspirations to ever be a coach of any type or form. But I've been involved in watching coaches and their relationship to the real estate industry. And I've been quite critical and quite vocal at times about the coaching industry. And there's a few of them out there that I'd quite happily give a slap in the face to, like not huge fans of them. So when you tapped into that, and as I said, given our discussions over the time, it was 100% me that reached out, and Rob Castro sent me a message and just said, I just wanted to get my face on camera. Partly true as well. But more so, I just wanted to give, I really wanted to give you that platform, because you've spent a long time talking to other people, and I know you've done it with us and Market Buy. And I just wanted to flip those scales, because I think what you've got has value, and I think what you're saying has relevance to the industry. And you had an established platform, with Ask Andy. So I just wanted to turn that into something where I just wanted more people to be aware of what you were doing and where it was going. So, not set up in any way. It was me. I did it, but glad that we did. I think there's a lot of value there for people, mate.
Well, I really appreciate the feedback, man. I really, really do. Rob's come on in true form, MMA style. Mate, no, we're not going to get in a cage. Although little known fact, I have had 4 fights, and got knocked out, got knocked clean out in the last one, actually. So, if anybody does fancy it, I guess we can have a go.
I'm too old these days, mate. I'm not getting in a cage with you. I'm too old.
Thank you. Gang, look, thank you so much for tuning in. For those that did, if anybody has any questions, feel free to give us a shout. Like I said, I don't like the spotlight as such. So, he has put me on the spot a little bit, which has been really, really cool. Dave, thank you so much for all your support, man. And the support that you give to the greater industry is tremendous, man. It's people like you that need to, that are now being recognized as the proper voices of the game, not the show ponies, right? And I really appreciate everything that you do,
mate. I appreciate you saying that. And look, again, all the best. I don't think you're going to need a lot of luck on this, Andy. I really don't. I think you'll find your groove on this one pretty quickly, and I'm pretty excited to see where it takes you over the next 12 months.
Wicked. All right, gang. I'm going to let you guys crack on. On behalf of Dave and myself, thank you so much for tuning in and giving us your attention. Really appreciate it. For now, stay safe, stay healthy. Most importantly, stay happy. Take care, gang.
See you guys.